So you've given us a whole stack of articles, all about asset reconstruction companies in India, ARCs, kind of a niche part of the financial system, but it sounds like a crucial one.
Absolutely crucial. Most people, they hear about loans gone bad and they think, oh, that's too bad. But these IRCs, they're the ones dealing with the aftermath, the big mess that's left behind.
Yeah, and we're not talking about, like, a library book overdue fine, right? These are some serious loans.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking loans that can make or break a company, like the kind of sums that make headlines, impact entire industries even.
Right, so how does this whole ARC thing work? From what I'm getting from these articles, they swoop in and buy these troubled loans, these bad debts from the banks. But they're buying them at a discount, aren't they?
Huge discounts in a lot of cases. I mean, we're talking 70, 80% off the original loan amount, sometimes even more.
Wow, that's a steep discount. Why would banks even agree to that?
Because frankly, they're often just desperate to get these toxic assets off their books. It's about damage control. They'd rather recoup something than nothing, right?
Makes sense. But then where's the incentive for the ARCs? It sounds incredibly risky.
It is high risk, no doubt, but that's the game they play. Buy low and hope like crazy that they can recover more than that discounted price they paid.
So they're like these financial gamblers, in a way.
That's one way to put it. But look, they do serve a vital role. Think of it like this. When a company goes belly up because of these massive debts, it can send shockwaves through the whole system.
Right, like a domino effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
ARCs, in theory at least, they're supposed to help contain that damage. They take on that risk so the banks don't completely freeze up and stop lending to anyone.
So they're like the cleanup crew, making sure the financial system doesn't grind to a halt.
That's a good analogy. They're supposed to help get that capital, that money, flowing back into the economy.
Okay, that makes sense. But here's where I get a little confused. A few of these articles, they talk about how the ARC industry in India, it's actually shrinking. Fewer of them out there.
It seems counterintuitive, right? Less need for financial firefighters. You'd think that's a good thing?
Exactly. Fewer fires to put out, right? So what's going on?
Well, there are a few factors at play, but one of the big ones, according to these articles, is a bit of a power shift, you could say.
Power shift, how so?
You've got this new player on the scene, and it's a big one, literally. The National Asset Reconstruction Company Limited, NRRCL for short.
Right, the government-backed giant. They seem to be looming large in a lot of these analyses.
They loom large in the market, too. See, NRRCL, they've got advantages that private ARCs, they just can't match.
Likewise.
Well, for starters, they've got the Indian government backing them up, right? Deeper pockets, that's for sure. But also political clout, access to resources, it's a whole other ballgame.
So they can afford to take on bigger, riskier cases, the kind that would make a private firm nervous.
Exactly. We're talking about those older loans, the ones that have been stuck in legal battles for years, tangled up in knots. Private ARCs, they're more likely to go for the newer stuff, the fresher defaults.
Less of a headache, I imagine.
Way less of a headache. And honestly, who can blame them? But it does create this interesting dynamic in the industry.
So are we seeing a kind of specialization then? Private firms handling the smaller, more straightforward cases, and the government stepping in to clean up the really messy ones.
It seems to be heading that way. The question is, can this kind of two-tiered system really be sustainable in the long run?
And what does it mean for the future of private ARCs? Can they thrive in this environment, or are they going to get squeezed out by the big government player?
Million-dollar questions. And frankly, these articles, they don't all agree on the answers. Some experts are saying, look, private ARCs, they need to adapt or die, while others are more optimistic.
Adapt how, though? What would that even look like?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, because some folks are suggesting that ARCs, they need to think beyond just debt collection.
Beyond debt collection. Okay,
Yeah.
now you've got my attention. What does that even mean?
It means, what if, instead of just buying up bad loans, ARCs actually became agents of change, of transformation? What if they took on these struggling companies and actually helped turn them around?
Now, that is an intriguing thought.
Yeah.
So instead of just being financial undertakers, they'd be more like, what, business doctors trying to revive the patient?
Precisely.
Okay, now we're talking. This is getting exciting.
Yeah.
So how would that work in practice? And is anyone actually doing this successfully? Business doctors, I like that. It's a whole different way of thinking about ARCs. But how would they pull that off? We're talking about companies already in deep trouble.
Right, but that's the thing. Sometimes a change in management, a new strategy, a cash injection at the right moment, that can be all it takes.
Easier said than done, though.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's not for the faint of heart. And that's why this whole idea, it's still pretty novel in the Indian context. But there are a few compelling examples in these articles, companies that have actually been pulled back from the brink thanks to an ARC that was willing to take a chance.
Oh, really? Do tell, because I have to admit, I'm a bit skeptical. Turning around a failing business, that's not exactly easy street.
It's not. But take, for instance, the case of Jagadia Copper Limited. It's mentioned in one of those reports you sent over.
Jagadia Copper, right? Rings a bell. They ended up being acquired by Hindustan Copper, didn't they?
They did, but before that, they were under the wing of an ARC. And this wasn't a case of just stripping assets and selling them off for parts. The ARC actually invested in Jagadia, improved their infrastructure, brought in a whole new management team with real expertise in, the copper industry.
So they were hands-on, really trying to get the company back on its feet.
They were, and it paid off. By the time Hindustan Copper came knocking Jagadia, it wasn't seen as a lost cause anymore. It was an attractive asset, a going concern.
So a success story, at least for Jagadia. But the question is, can that be replicated on a larger scale? And where are ARCs going to find all these turnaround specialists, these business whisperers who can work these kinds of miracles?
That's the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, it's not like these people are just, growing on trees. It takes a special kind of skill set to walk into a failing company and see the path back to profitability.
It's a rare breed, for
Yeah.
sure. You'd need someone who's got that financial acumen, but also operational experience, leadership skills, the whole shebang.
You're telling me. And that's why some of these experts are saying, look, India's management institutions, they need to step up to the plate.
So we're talking about a whole new curriculum, courses that teach you how to resuscitate a dying company, not just analyze its financials.
Exactly. Imagine MBA programs that churn out graduates who aren't just financial wizards, but also have those skills to lead these complex turnarounds. That'd be a game changer.
It would be amazing, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But let's be real. Even with the best intentions, the most talented people, the ARC industry in India, it's facing some serious challenges right now.
You're not wrong. And frankly, some of it's self-inflicted. These articles, they don't shy away from the controversies.
Right, the allegations of shady dealings, conflicts of interest, the RBI breathing down their necks.
It's not a good look. The RBI, they've been pretty vocal about wanting to clean up the industry, make it more transparent, more accountable.
But what are the specifics there? What kind of shady stuff are we talking about?
Well, there have been accusations of some ARCs. They're basically just fronts for the same people who ran the companies into the ground in the first place.
Oh, so it's like this whole, left hand, right hand kind of thing.
Exactly. It completely defeats the purpose of the whole system. And then you've got these concerns about how they're treating individual borrowers, especially now that there are more and more, personal loans, credit card debt, things like that ending up in ARC portfolios.
So more pressure, maybe even harassment from the collectors.
That's the worry. And the RBI, they're not taking it lightly. They're talking about stricter rules, maybe even a complete overhaul of how ARCs operate.
Sounds like a pivotal moment for the industry. On the one hand, you've got this potential for them to evolve, to become these forces for good in the economy. But on the other hand, they're grappling with some serious credibility issues.
And let's not forget, this whole debate about the role of the government, the NRRCL versus the private sector, that's not going away anytime soon.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So where does all of this leave us? What's the takeaway for our listeners, the people trying to make sense of all this from the outside? So much to unpack here. I feel like we've only scratched the surface. But I got to ask, for the everyday person listening to this, why does all this ARC drama even matter? It seems pretty high finance, pretty removed from, real life.
It's a fair point. ARCs, balance sheets, it can seem pretty abstract. I get it. But here's the thing. A healthy financial system, it's the engine that drives everything else. And when that engine sputters, everyone feels the impact.
Okay, but paint me a picture. How does say, an ARC struggling in Mumbai,
Right.
how does that impact, I don't know, someone running a small business in Bangalore?
All right, think of it this way. Banks, they're in the business of lending money, right? But when they've got all these bad loans on their books, loans they're not sure they'll ever recover, it makes them super cautious.
Makes sense. They don't want to get burned again.
Exactly. So suddenly, that small business owner in Bangalore, the one with a great idea, a solid plan, they go to the bank for a loan, and what happens?
They get turned down.
They might. The bank's too nervous, too gun-shy from those previous bad loans, credit dries up, the whole system tightens, and that hurts everyone, from the small business owner to the people they would have hired if they'd gotten that loan.
Right, it's like this ripple effect. That initial problem with the bad loans, it spreads outward.
Exactly. And that's where ARCs, in a perfect world, that's where they come in. They take on those bad loans, clean up the mess, free up the banks to lend again. And ideally, if they're really firing on all cylinders, they're not just cleaning up, they're helping those struggling businesses get back on their feet.
Right, the whole business doctor approach we were talking about.
Exactly. More jobs, more economic activity, everybody wins.
It's a nice vision, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But we've also seen the flip side, right? If ARCs aren't playing by the rules, if they're more interested in quick profits than actual solutions, the whole thing backfires.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why this scrutiny from the RBI, the Reserve Bank, it's crucial. They need to keep the pressure on, make sure ARCs are serving the economy as a whole, not just their own bottom line.
So if we had to sum it all up, what's the one big takeaway our listeners should remember about the future of ARCs in India?
The one big takeaway. I'd say this, the jury's still out. The story of India's ARCs, it's still being written. Will they rise to the occasion, become these engines of growth and revitalization? Or will they, fall back into old habits, become a drag on the system?
A lot riding on that, it seems.
There is, and these articles you shared, they make it clear there's no easy answer. It's a complex issue with a lot of moving parts, everything from regulations to the overall health of the economy to, frankly, human nature, greed versus the greater good.
Well said. It's a reminder that even in the world of finance, even when we're talking about these huge sums of money, it all boils down to people, to choices, the impact those choices have on the ground.
Couldn't agree more. It's about striking that balance, right? Encouraging innovation, managing risks, and never losing sight of the human cost.
Absolutely. And on that note, I think we've done our due diligence for today. We've explored the ins and outs of India's ARC industry. We've tackled the controversies, the challenges, the glimmers of hope.
And hopefully we've left our listeners with a few more questions, a few things to ponder.
As always, the goal isn't to give easy answers, but to spark curiosity, get those mental gears turning.
Exactly. Because the world of finance, especially in a dynamic economy like India's, it's constantly evolving. What's true today might be outdated tomorrow.
So true. So to all our listeners out there, stay informed, stay engaged, and until our next deep dive, keep asking those tough questions.
We'll be here to explore them with you.